How can DNA transform our healthcare? I'm Kate Save. The Inspired CEO starts now. Welcome to The Inspired CEO, where each episode we explore the innovative wellness practices that are driving success and longevity in the modern business world. In this episode, we explore the world of genetics and innovation. Joining me now is Allan Sheffield, founder and CEO of MyDNA. Thank you so much for coming in today, Allan.
Pleasure. Thanks, Kate.
Now, I need to know, what inspired you to start this journey with MyDNA? And I know that your father was involved in the early days too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was very much inspired by my father and his work. So my father is a clinical geneticist, and he's spent the last 40 years bringing genetics from research into clinical practice. And so he's known for bringing things like Down syndrome screening in pregnancy, and that became a Medicare item in Australia.
Yeah.
He was known as the father of genetic counselling because he saw a role that if you're going to offer genetic testing, you need genetic counselling. And a lot of that was in the public system. And in his early 60s, he said he was going to start his own business. And my background was more technology.
Yes.
And I saw this really exciting opportunity to sort of combine technology with genomics and help make it more accessible for people. Yeah.
So incredible. So at the time when your father came home and he said he was going to start this business, what made you leave your where you were working at the time? So you left a job and decided to start your own business. Is that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I left this very cushy job working for IBM, you know, and earning good money. And I really loved his sort of vision he had a very clear vision for what he wanted to do. And I always wanted to do something in healthcare. My brother's a doctor, my father's a doctor, and his mother was a doctor. So it was really exciting to sort of step from tech into genetics. And it's sort of, at the time, which was 15 years ago, was sort of earmarked as the future of medicine. And so being involved in something that could completely disrupt healthcare really excited me. And I think I was ready for something that, you know, had more purpose than just sort of the rat race, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so why is DNA really the future of healthcare?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, the DNA is so much information that you can get from DNA, and you know, a lot of medicine today, as we know, is practiced is very reactive. Yes. Very trial and error. So, and what you can do with genetics is you can actually be much more precise and personalised. And so, an example of that is, you know, today when you go to your doctor and they're trying to find the right medication for you, they know that some medications may work, some medications may not work, or some might give you side effects. And so they'll pick a drug based on what they think's best for you, that a one-size-fits-all approach. But what we can do with genetics is we can actually be much more precise and find the right drug for the right person first time.
And that makes perfect sense. I've heard many times now when people have gone to their GP to get a referral, maybe for an antidepressant, maybe for a blood pressure pill, and it doesn't work. And they have to go round and round trying to find something that actually works. And that can take a lot of time. So this can shortcut that process? Correct.
It's a much more efficient process, so it stops some of the guesswork and then gives more information for the doctor to make a better decision. So it's not a silver bullet, but it's really narrowing down those options and just de-risking it. And it can apply for not just in the medication space, but in all sorts of treatments in healthcare. So give me some examples in personalised wellness. What other things can we be testing for in the everyday person use? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your genetics can give you information about what to eat in terms of weight management and getting the best nutritional benefit, how to exercise, and even advice about sleep and stress. So things that we, I guess, live in our daily lives. So an example of that might be, from a weight management perspective, there are genetics that can indicate that you might be more likely to put on weight. And so by understanding that, you can then look at what sort of advice there is to try to modify those things that you were born with, so that you can, I guess, manage your weight more effectively.
And I know that there's definitely a test for caffeine, because I was fascinated when I found out how I process caffeine, and some people can't have it, some people are very slow at processing it, other people can sleep after having caffeine. So even those little insights I think are really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's one that everyone relates to, because everyone, a lot of people drink caffeine, and there's always those people that can have a coffee 2 hours before they go to bed, but a lot of people can't do that, and your genetics is the reason, because you're taking a stimulant, and your body's got to get rid of it, and some people have the gene to get rid of it quickly, and other people don't.
So this technology is incredible, but what have been the challenges in scaling this, and are you global now?
Yeah, so we were, MyDNA, it's been a bit of a journey, and certainly, I guess when we started as an Australian business, and focused very much on wellness genetic testing as well as the medication advice. In 2021, we were lucky enough to merge and acquire with a US-based business. So we now have a lab in Melbourne, Australia, as well as a lab in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
And so we went for a company that was 20 to 30 people to a company that's about 150 people. And so, there was lots of challenges in times in that sort of journey, but really exciting as well. I mean, culture was probably a big challenge. How do you bridge the Australian, the Australians down south versus up in Houston? And
what did you do there to build a really strong culture, and how do you lead teams across the other side of the world? Well, the first thing we did is we worked on sort of what our culture and our values were. So we tried to we really involved the team. So it wasn't really just like a top-down approach. It was very a consultative approach with the different leadership teams across the business, and so it was one thing, I guess, coming up with the values. Yes.
But then the next thing is actually living to those values and making decisions about those values. So that's certainly been one of the challenges, and it's certainly it's been good, because effectively we've got that set of values, and we've got to keep refining them as well.
And so that's about the team. So what about you? How do you manage your own personal health? And I guess you've got all of these insights, and I'm sure you've done your own DNA testing. How do you use that personalised advice and put that into practice?
It's a good question. When I worked at IBM, I remember the CEO used to say, you've got to eat your own cooking. So I certainly, as someone that tries to take what I've learned and apply it to my life. So a good example for work, in a busy, is stress. You can get very stressed as you're trying to grow this company, and and one of the genetic markers that we do sort of shows that I've got tendency to get much higher dopamine type levels, and so one of the modifying factors for that is strength training. So I would, I've always been very active. Exercise is really important in terms of my lifestyle and how I manage stress anyway. But now I do much more strength training than I would do, let's say, cardio as a result of it, and I feel the difference. So that's that's sort of one example. There's lots of examples in terms of when I eat as well, like in terms of my predisposition to developing diabetes, and so there's science that says that based on genetics I should be having breakfast much later in the day. So what I do is I try to do more intermittent fasting, so that which that means it's also sort of hopefully modifying my risk of diabetes later in life.
And I guess the temptation there would be as well to make sure everyone on the team's doing this, because if you can get the best out of yourself and you can perform well, then how do you encourage the team to take those steps and also to get that optimal performance, hopefully, back in the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. We try to give everyone the opportunity to do their own genetic testing. But we effectively try to get a nice work-life balance for people, to give them opportunities, I guess, to balance the stress of work. So we do 2 days a week people work from home in Australia, and in the US we've got a gym at the facility, so people can do their exercise or apply those types of things to their every daily work, and hopefully be present, get the best out of them.
And so a lot of responsibility on you across the two countries, and how do you get that balance, not just between your health and your work life, but also with family and social? What does that look like for you, and what strategies work to really put those rules in place so that you're not tip towards one side of that equation?
Yeah, well, it's not easy. One, I guess we've got a really good team at MyDNA, so we share the load effectively in how we manage that. But yeah, sometimes you're doing early mornings on Zoom from Australia so that you can have your calls in the US, and then I'm also doing work in the UK, so then you're in the evening. So balance is important. Prioritisation, I would say, becomes pretty key. My family's very important. I've got 3 young boys and beautiful wife, so I guess it's just about prioritising. And I get a lot of energy from spending time with family. And if you don't have good energy, that's very hard to take on that daily work. The daily stresses and the things that you've got to do at work as well.
So good to hear that you've got 3 boys and you live a very normal life outside of work as well, because I think a lot of times people from the outside looking in will see these big businesses and forget that you're a normal human behind this all, and you still need to operate your everyday life, not just work. And are there any tips that you would give other people listening or watching today?
For me, I think like we said, it's balance. I volunteer to be like the local sort of junior cricket coach as an example, and that's such a good break from the routine of work, the routines of work, and so the ability to switch off when you're at home, but then switch on at work, and being present is so important. And then in that way you can get the best out of you and also the best out of your team as well when you're at work. And
I love that you've taken that commitment on with the sport as well, because you have to show up. It's not an optional thing like should I go to the gym or should I ride to work today. Actually committing to that means you need to be there. And how do you think that'll rub off on your kids, seeing you as a role model?
Oh, you're giving me shivers down my spine as you sort of say that. But look, I think in a really positive way. Certainly for my middle son, being the coach of his team for a number of years, I think he really got a lot out of it himself. And in terms of what, seeing the leadership, I suppose, and the communication amongst the team, and a sense of pride of being part of that. So, he's certainly, out of the 3 boys, the one that's interested in leadership and the business, and so it must have some sort of direct effect.
There you go. Well, that must make you very proud, and I'm so grateful that you could come in for this interview today. So thank you, Allan, and best of luck with scaling MyDNA and continuing to grow genomics and personalised health and nutrition. So this is Ticker, and we will be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.